Well, that was one heck of a general session. Went a little long. It's getting hot in there. A lot of great information being thrown at you. It's 103 degrees outside, and that heat is coming inside. Again, welcome back to Teradata Partners 2017. I was looking on the feed, and a lot of people from around the world were watching that. Utah, Plano, San Diego, Orlando, Paris, Sweden, Portland, Oregon, Canada, San Jose. It keeps going and going. So again, for all of you that were watching, thank you very much. Now, this is the first time that we've ever streamed live. Now, we are streaming live right now on YouTube and Facebook, and it's very exciting, so I want to welcome each and every one of you. For those of you that transferred from the general session, welcome back to the news desk. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of interviews coming up. Let's top line really quick. Troy Kreitz was up there from Monsanto chatting. We're going to be seeing him a little bit later on. Vic Lund. Such an emotional, passionate leader he is. I'm really excited to chat with him up here as well once again. Had him last year. Going to continue some conversation we started. Oliver Ratzenberger. I don't know if you caught this. After he was done with his presentation, he came back on stage and he had his sunglasses right here. Obviously, he went outside to enjoy the sunshine here in Anaheim. But Teradata everywhere. He talked about that, the agility and flexibility to analyze data to take your business to the next level, or of course, stay ahead of the curve. Moving from database to analyze platform. Announcement of telecloud. A lot going on here. We're going to chat with him about that as well. And Joy Ito. What a mind he has. We're going to be chatting with him as well a little bit later on today, so I hope you guys tune in for that. It's been exciting so far. We're going to get started. Make sure you guys are out there hashtagging, hashtag TDPartners17. TDPartners17, join the conversation that has already begun. And let's go ahead and begin right now, setting the bar, starting it off. Neil Radin. Great to have you here. I'm excited to have you here. We're inside the conference hall this year. In Atlanta last year we weren't. We were out in the lobby area. Folks are starting to come in from the general session. It was a great general session. I'm not sure how much you catch of that.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah. It was great. A lot of good information. Yeah. You're the founder of Hired Brains, and we have a lot to talk about. You and I were chatting off camera. Very interesting where the industry is going, how fast it's moving, what we're jumping into. But before we do that, you're from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and you don't like green chili. How does that happen? Where did you go wrong?
Well, I've only lived in Santa Fe for 7 years.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I want to jump right into it since the general session went a little long. I want to jump right into it with you. The difference between ML and AI, before that, for those of you that don't know what Hired Brains is, Neil Radin, he's the founder of Hired Brains, research and advisory firm focused on the application of technology for analytics and decision making. You've been a mathematician, an actuary, software developer, a consultant, a noted author as well, an industry analyst, and you provide context to decisions about technology and its use. So between ML and AI, what's the difference?
Well, it's getting harder and harder to really, they're just terms, but there are some fundamental differences. As far as I'm concerned, AI involves things like natural language processing, speech recognition, text recognition, vision, I don't know, maybe even smell, who knows. But a lot of those things that aren't, strictly business related. Machine learning is a technique of taking effectively, at least in our world, in this analytics world, of taking data that is observational data from business or transactions and applying algorithms to it to try to make some sense out of it, to find causal relationships or graphs and so forth. Machine learning is actually very important to artificial intelligence, but I wouldn't call machine learning itself artificial intelligence. In fact, the whole concept of learning is a little strange, except that with machine learning, you just push data into it and run some models. It starts with the assumption, basically, that you don't know anything. There's other techniques like Bayesian models and classic statistical models, but with machine learning, technically, it's abstracted away the provenance of the data. It just is presented data and it works with it. It doesn't know where it came from or what it's for. Whereas in classic statistical modeling, which may actually use the same algorithms, you're obsessively concerned with the random randomization of the data so that you can have credibility with your findings. I don't know. That, I mean, that's probably only a partial or maybe not even a very good definition, but they're both moving so fast that it's really hard to separate them.
Well, that's the thing. It is moving fast. And how to differentiate what your business needs now in comparison to what it's going to be needing in the future. You're thinking ahead. Do I need AI? Do I need ML? Getting a team together, I guess that's kind of what you do. You kind of decide, you help the companies decide what they're going to need in the future, and implementing AI into the business. Will you employ ML and AI through embedded functionality of tools, or will you create your own, or will you do both?
Both will be done. I think that today, to stand up and fund an artificial intelligence group within a company is a big endeavor. It takes a lot of funding. It takes hiring people who are in short supply. There's a lot of skill that's needed. I don't think very few people can walk in the door and have all the pieces they need to get the job done. It's a multi-person kind of process. And then after all that, if you come up with some, golden egg, you have to find some way to get it into the organization and used to make it worthwhile. And another thing, I like to say that good models rot in software. And that means that you may have a great model today, but at some point, tomorrow, next month, or whatever, that model's not going to be working as well as it was. So the idea of data scientists coming together and building one of these fantastic models and then moving on to the next one, they may be stuck with that model for a long time because they're continually testing it and improving it and so forth. So the productivity of that group is probably not all that you would hope because you have so much work to do.
It's similar to whenever I have my cell phone and a new cell phone comes out, mine doesn't work as well anymore. I don't understand. There's a lot of frustration, and I know you're feeling the same way out there. It's just ridiculous. That's what I thought about when you said that.
I used to say that rather than install a new operating system on my laptop, I just buy a new laptop.
That's right. That's kind of what you have to do nowadays. What do you need to know to make good decisions about this technology? I mean, there's a lot you need to know, but what do you need to know or you want to know?
Well, it's kind of a function of what you think the technology is going to do for you. It reminds me of the scene in a Ridley Scott movie called The Kingdom of Heaven. I don't know if you ever saw it, with Orlando Bloom and some other people. And he was the knight who was defending Jerusalem against Saladin and the Persians. And of course, Saladin's army just overran them. And they met in the middle to discuss terms, and Saladin gave him very, very good, very nice terms for surrender. And then they go their separate ways and start to walk away. And Orlando Bloom turns around and says to Saladin, "What's Jerusalem worth?" And Saladin turns and looks at him and says, "Nothing," and starts to walk away. "Everything." and I think that's a good metaphor for this, is that it's potentially worth everything, but on its own, it isn't worth anything unless you can implement it. And organizations are very complex. You have to go from the development and the experiment and the implementation into operations and getting people to use it and so forth. So that's the way I look at it.
I mean, it's perfect. You start with data, and data is just data, numbers and words, until you can analyze it. Once you analyze it, you can implement it. That's perfect. That's a perfect analogy. Going back to AI in the 60s and 80s, AI was around, but both times it failed. What's the big difference now?
Well, there was some brilliant foundational work done in AI in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And the problem was that we didn't have the resources at that time to really do this. I think none of us really expected it was going to take so much computing power and so much data to make it work. I like to use the analogy that if you bought a 1985 Ferrari Testarossa, it had a top speed of 185 miles an hour, and it cost $220,000. But if you subjected that car to the same forces that are at play in our industry now, that car would cost $165 and go 1/4 the speed of light. And that's an actual calculation. And I use that to give people a sense of what really has happened in those ensuing years. But you couldn't do machine learning with 2 billion rows of data and iterate through it, in a deep neural network. It was not possible.
Well, thank goodness that you can watch all of this 90 days after the conference, because that right there, it was perfect what he said. 1986 Ferrari Testarossa, I think it was probably my favorite design. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You coming up here again. You started us off here at the news desk, as we are going to be live here for the next couple of interviews. Once again, Neil Radin, founder of Higher Brains. Neil, we'll see you throughout the week.
Thank you.
As the general session has ended, folks are moving into the expo hall. And again, it's going to start getting a little wild in here. Coming up very, very soon, they're going to be walking up on stage in just a few moments. Joe Openshaw, Timothy Zeider, Enterprise Business Intelligence, EDW Technical Manager for Meyer. Love Meyer. Meyer out there in Michigan in the Midwest. We're going to be chatting with these guys here and chatting about Sentient Enterprise. What's Meyer doing these days to promote agile and self-service? And facts, without further ado, how are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Good to have you. I'm doing fantastic. Of course, good to have you guys here. The first thing, Joe, you're working on testing for your black belts. How hard is that?
That takes a lot of time and effort, but a lot of fun.
Well, I got a black belt on today. It wasn't too tough. I just slipped it around. Hey, you have an identical twin.
I do.
Okay,
but I'm older.
You're how many
6
seconds?
minutes.
Oh,
6
that's
minutes.
a big gap.
Yeah.
You don't hear that too often, identical twins. So let's chat about Meyer. It's a family business grocery chain. I think I worked out math. I'm not very good. 82, 83, 84 years, right around there. It's been around
exactly.
for a long time. Started in Michigan, now it's throughout the Midwest, and such a great family-owned business. Joe is responsible for the business side and processes for all the business intelligence and reporting architectures, tools, capabilities, and vision within Meyer. And Tim, well, he leads the BI and EDW infrastructure team, determining the best strategy for big data analytics environment, and helps ensure businesses, users have business continuity, best-in-class tools, accurate information to drive fast-paced decision-making. Tim, I'm going to start with you. Sentient Enterprise influenced Meyer. How has that happened?
Well, the Sentient Enterprise, we saw some presentations earlier this year from Oliver. It's a series of capabilities that we are looking at Meyer to look at how do we improve scale and our agile capabilities at Meyer moving forward in our environment.
What's Meyer doing these days to promote agile and self-service?
Actually, our entire IT organization is agile. And as we work through all the iterations of BI, now normally BI is very iterative and you work through some small cycles, but as we go to a full agile model, self-service is one of the key points in delivering good analytics to be able to deliver in 2-week sprints.
We listened during the general session. It's, you don't want to manage the infrastructure, you want to manage your customers, you want to be a part of the customers, and I guess this is kind of where you guys really thrive on this. You want to move into the more focusing on the customers instead of building that infrastructure. The support of the infrastructure is now here. Yeah. How will you implement governance and self-service, going off of what you had just said?
From a governance perspective, it's been challenging trying to get enough freedom so the teams can actually get work done, but without exposing ourselves to either wrong answers or HIPAA or PCI information. And so as we worked with the business to slowly set up governance so that we can protect ourselves from exposure.
And I'd say one of the things that we've done too is we're looking at the disciplines at the core, flexibility at the edge. This is something that we've learned is if we can give our end users that capability, whether they're using a MicroStrategy or a Power BI tool, to do the job that they need to do and get ITS out of the way, we will supply the disciplines, the standards, and procedures from an ITS perspective to help them be successful at what they do.
And self-service has a whole range from picking geography, product time, display, constraint, through data wrangling and trying to understand what the questions are. We don't want to force stringent governance on simple problems, but let them have the freedom with the tough problems.
With all that you guys have done, what has been some of the most pivotal or critical components?
I think one of the critical components has been engaging in the business and letting them be part of the governance and solutioning. As we've stood up the boot camp in how we teach people how to use the data, consume the data, communicate the data. The relationship with the business, letting them be part of that consumption model has been critical for us.
And I would say one of the critical factors for us is implementing data labs into our environment. This data lab sits on production. We give access to our end users to go into their data labs and fail fast, work with the production data to come up with those solutions that Meijer needs quickly. So that's been a key factor for us as well.
Yeah.
Would you guys consider Meijer, a lot of big grocery chains out there, but would you guys consider Meijer a leader in the forefront when it comes to AI, BI, everything that we're talking about here on this conference? Would you consider Meijer being that leader?
Yeah, I think so. We've been out there, we've been partners for about 20 years now through all of the growth of Teradata and MicroStrategy and Power BI and Alteryx and many tool sets that we use. We come to conferences like this to learn a lot of things, but I think we do a pretty good job.
And I would agree with Joe that we learn a lot from the Teradata Partners Conference. We learn a lot from the companies that are here, seeing what they've done well, lessons learned, and apply that at Meijer. You have to be on the leading edge in retail. Your customers, the convenience that they want. If Fred Meyer told us a long time ago, the customers don't need us, we need them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. At retail, one of the most challenging and competitive industries, especially in grocery food. With all that you guys have learned, you can't have a successful business without failing first, or else the business will not succeed in time. It might take a while. What would you do differently? What would you change? What would you have taken away? What have you guys learned?
Well, when we first started doing data labs and self-service, we wanted to have all the answers to all the questions and have it right. And we started pretty slow. In hindsight, I would just start where we were and slowly evolve it over time and then learn as we go and not have all the answers up front. And I think now we find the next answer and then we go for it and find the next answer and let it be a more evolutive process than a perfect solution.
Yep, and I would agree with that as far as we in IT have always taken the traditional waterfall approach.
Yeah.
We're looking at scalable, agile processes now to make sure that we can address, the business challenges and opportunities quicker and scale and get that out there to compete in our environment.
Yeah, and have fun.
And have fun. That's an important part, and that's why a lot of businesses they stop having fun and they start feeling like, okay, what we need to do is this in order to stay on top of the industry. We need to implement this. Well, okay, great, you implement it. You bring it in and you have all this data, you have no idea what to do with it, and it moves too fast. And I think a lot of the times the businesses will stray off to the side and they lose focus of what their original goal was.
Yeah.
So balancing that, it's got to be difficult with how fast the industry is moving forward.
Well, in the early days, we would go build a Porsche, but no one would drive it. Or by the time we built it,
First off, I like the fact the first two speakers, we're bringing in cars to this. We have a Ferrari, now we got a Porsche. I like the luxury line that we're staying with. It's great.
So we like starting with a nice scooter and then working towards a Honda and working the way up, and then maybe don't need a Porsche, maybe a good solid Ford gets us there. And so that's been our approach, is just to go for the next answer versus the perfect answer.
What things have you, I've got some of these questions here that I wrote out because we have so many different speakers that are coming up here. I want to make sure that I stay on task. One thing though, what things have you put in place for training IT or business?
Probably the best thing we put in place was a concept for boot camp. And so when someone wants to come and start using these self-service tools, we've built a social contract and we kind of a driver's license for their car. If you want to use these tools, here's how you govern yourself, here's how you learn the standards, here's how you implement a solution. And we actually call it collaborative self-service. We in IT want to teach the business how to build for themselves as if IT built it, but let them do it in a way that if we do take it on in IT, it already has the standards, naming conventions, colors, and process, so the consumption to automate it is a lot cheaper than just coming to IT and say, go build this. And so that's been a good thing for us.
Yep, and the other thing that we've done too at Meijer is the tool Viewpoint. We've allowed our end users access to that so they can actually see their Teradata system. They can see how busy it is. They can take a look at their queries. They can open them up and see how they're compared to all the other queries running on the system. So as we collaborate with our end users, we teach them how to fish, they learn to get better, and it benefits everybody in our environment.
And peer pressure too. They can see who are their brothers and sisters are in front of them, and they can see how good or bad the queries are, and then they can go kind of help each other be better at the queries.
Yeah.
So peer pressure to our advantage.
Last question, what partnerships have helped you guys the most?
I think not only the partnerships with the business, but partnerships with companies like Teradata, MicroStrategy, Power BI, but also within IT. We've had to do a lot of things informally, and we'll collaborate with myself and Tim and from the development team and kind of blur those lines in IT, because some of this is pretty cutting edge processes and spans a lot of the shop.
Yep, and I would say one of the partnerships that's benefited me the most over the years is the committees that Teradata allows you to participate in. I've been in the product advisory committee. That's just a great learning opportunity. You get to exchange ideas with Teradata and some of the best people in the world working on these solutions. So highly recommend that anybody that's interested in these committees go out and volunteer. It's worth their time.
Joe, Tim, thank you very much, you guys. I appreciate you guys coming up here. And again, I hope we continue the luxury car line conversation as we continue this. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys throughout the week.
All right. Thank you.
Joe, Tim, thank you very much. Well, the awesome interviews are going to continue throughout the day again. We're going to continue to be live, as most of you that are watching now, Facebook and YouTube. And of course, you guys can get online. And we want you to listen to all of the speakers, the experts that are going to be coming up here. We'll chat about that a little bit later on. 4 different breakout sessions just about to start. Presenters from Hudson's Bay Company, Teradata, Think Big Analytics, Danske Bank Group. Coming up very, very soon, Joy Ito is going to be joining us up here. I'm very excited about that. We'll be back.